start. Liz is going to be, we were reading how Thomas was who is the current chair of our international committee and also chair of the modern and classical languages, and she actually chairs the faculty long-term activity proposal subcommittee that is part of the international committee, and they review the application first and then submit their recommendations to the provost. So I've asked her to be here also today. But anyways, okay, well, okay. So welcome everybody to the information session on the Faculty Long-Term International Activity Award. My name is Marja Unkuri-Chaudhry, and I currently serve as Interim Director of the Global Engagement Office and Director of Education Abroad and Partnerships. So it's a long title and a lot of work. Wearing currently 2 hats here, but really excited to have all of you here. And so we're really also fortunate to have here 2 faculty members who spent, who went actually, they took advantage of this award and were abroad last year. And I'll probably have them introduce them. Well, I'll first talk a little bit about the basics of the, the application process, deadlines and things like that. And then I think that it would be good for us to really devote most of the time to have them to talk about their experience and their perspectives on the, how to write the proposal and also feedback on how everything went. And there comes Liz Unkuri-Chaudhry. I already introduced you, kind of said that she'll be here. So she's our chair of the International Committee and the chair of the Modern and Classical Languages, who also chairs the subcommittee that first reviews these proposals and then submits the recommendations to the provost office. So we are fortunate, we have funding for next academic year for this, or next actually fiscal year really, for this award. It's going to be limited to 15,000 total, so that it's going to be a competitive process, but the applications for the funding will be due, or the proposals with the application, but proposal will be due this next month, Friday, October 26th, and then please submit the proposal by email as a PDF to the Global Engagement, and that's the email. It's also, this information is on the website. And then we would like to, all of those to have come on time, and also with the subject line reading your last name and then the name of this award. And we will not be able to accommodate late proposals, to be fair for everybody. And so, as you all probably know, that this award is funded by the Office of the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. And we've, unfortunately, of course, given that the funding has declined in many areas, the university is also, the total funding for this award has been declined, but we've been very, the Global Engagement, we've been very adamant about the importance of this award and to make sure that this is an opportunity that will be there for faculty. And again, many of our faculty members will go to our partner institutions abroad. You may know, if you've been on the Global Engagement Office website, we have currently 92 partner institutions abroad. And then, just for your information, we do student exchanges with 60 of those partner institutions. However, it's not at all that you'll be limited to going to these partner universities. We have had many faculty members who've actually taken this opportunity to develop a new partnership with a new university as well, and that's completely possible. And so it's not that you would have to go, it's just that sometimes I have faculty members coming to me and say, look, I would like to go to this part of the world, however, I don't have any contacts. And what I do at that point in time is that I will have faculty submit like a resume and CV and like a letter of intent, and then I will approach our partner universities in that continent, country, and see if there's interest to accommodate the faculty member. So I've worked with these universities a lot. keeps me very busy for sure. But I really like to offer that opportunity also for you if you like assistance in reaching out to some of these universities. And we have many faculty members who actually also do this in conjunction with their sabbatical. So that's also something that is an opportunity.
Can I ask a quick question? Is it okay to ask?
Well, maybe we'll just go through that and we'll get to the questions. I mean, if you don't mind, I'll go over this and then after I'm done, so we'll take questions and then we'll move to the presenters and I mean our faculty members who've been on this opportunity abroad. So all of this information is, by the way, on the web on the Global Engagement Office website. So our international committee reviewed actually last year the criteria for this proposal. So that's really important to look at. It used to be even a lot more wordy and I think harder to read, but now we came up with a very specific criteria that we would like you to be thinking about. So we'll just go over. So there's really 6 of them. So anticipated curriculum impact as measured by pedagogical course proposals, syllabi changes, thesis or the dissertation's position, and related outputs. Anticipated scholarship, research, and/or creative activity impact measured by prepared publications, grant proposals, contracts, presentations, or mentoring opportunities of undergraduate or graduate students. And then anticipated service to U of M campus community as measured by local articles, speeches, and potential for the exchange to enhance institutional partnerships for U of M. And that's again where you see that connection to developing a new partnership. And then anticipated university and local community impact as measured by local articles, speeches, presentations, performances. Then ability to live and work in different cultural environment and represent U of M well with distinction, and then overall quality and soundness of the proposal. And then the proposal format, and by the way, we have PDF electronic files of all the funding proposals in the past, so we're happy to share some of them as examples for you if you would like. We have them all arranged in our shared files. And so the proposal format is such that first of all, you of course have the narrative, and then we'll go over some of these pieces. Budget, and we'll go over the budget, especially a written statement from applicant's department chair, and then a 2-page summarized CV, and no more than 3 letters of support from colleagues familiar with the professional activities of the applicant. And then we've added actually something that's really important that we didn't have before, which is the letter of support from host institution. Now, just a word of caution about it. Like, remember I mentioned earlier that I'm happy to contact our partner universities on your behalf if you don't necessarily already have contacts there, but remember it takes time. So it is not reasonable to expect the partner university to review your CV proposal like in a few days. So just, gosh, it's mid-October, I need to get my proposal together and then let's contact the university. It's something that especially a lot of our also European and even anywhere else in the world, I mean, they will need to look at that carefully. Often activities such as this kind of a faculty exchange or faculty international activity is very decentralized at those universities. So they will need to, then their international office will need to contact the department and find an appropriate person to review your information. So you do need to reserve adequate and ample amount of time for that. And then we just have this limit that proposals should not exceed 8 pages, and I have the details in there. And that includes applicant CV, but excludes the 3 support letters and a statement by applicant's chair regarding necessary funds. So one important thing that is important to note is about the placement cost, because as you know, with the faculty, with this opportunity, the idea is that you will be receiving your salary. You will continue to receive your salary from the University of Montana. However, if you go abroad, the question that is important is that who is going to be teaching and taking care of your teaching load. So there has to be a statement from the chair, the cost associated with the replacement of exchange faculty. The amount must be included in the statement from the chair and submit it as part of the application. So it's important that you start the conversation with your chair. That sometimes, you know, we talk about this and when we mention this opportunity, we say exchange. So there have been some cases in the past where it has truly been an exchange. So we've actually had a foreign faculty member come from our partner university to take over the teaching load of that faculty member who goes abroad, but that rarely happens. So often it's a question of the negotiation of the replacement cost that needs to take place in conversations with your chair. And then, so that's one piece of the allowable expenses, really the replacement cost. And then the other part of it is the cost associated with the exchange or with the opportunity itself. And so airfare, and of course, you know, important to shop around for those. And then housing costs, and we say here economic housing arrangements, subsidized living arrangements, or off-campus housing. And if it's like a little bit shorter term, and again, by the way, this is something when we call this opportunity a long-term international opportunity. So what that really means is that it's normally either semester or year. Now, I mean, then I've often been approached, well, can it be shorter than that? Yes, it can. We've had some, I'm looking in the past, probably that were like maybe 3 months or something was the shortest. Remember that we did have earlier funding opportunity from global engagement for short-term international activity, which was really for traveling to a conference. So this is not meant for like the opportunity of going to a conference. This is meant for a longer-term engagement overseas. So I'll talk about the housing and then in-country travel. And now, yeah, one point about housing. A lot of our partner universities have guest houses for international visitors. So it's really important to look into if those opportunities exist, because that's often a lot lower cost, and even sometimes getting a apartment in their local housing market. For example, our partner university in Finland, University of Helsinki, has amazing, modern, very contemporary guest housing for faculty that is very low cost. And if you would go, like in a country like Finland, to try to rent an apartment for that price, you would never find it. I mean, of course, also Airbnb can sometimes be an opportunity, but anyways, definitely look into the economic housing opportunities. And then in-country travel, especially if it's a research related, that's completely something that can be included in the allowable expenses. Now, note about meals and incidental expenses, because you are drawing on for exchanges that take place while applicant is on a university contract and drawing regular salary, no additional allowance made for meals or incidental expenses. In other words, you would have to pay for your meals anywhere, regardless where you are, so there's no allowance for meals. And nor supplies. And then, of course, funds cannot be used to support accompanying family members. And also one important point is that the awards have to be spent before July 1st, starting July 1st, 2019, and before June 30th, 2020. So we have this competitive proposal process the year prior to the time that you would be traveling abroad. Okay, so that's it. Any questions? You had a question.
Yeah, I have a few. So one is just when you were talking about the partner institutions, is there does the committee prioritize proposals if they are for faculty exchanges at a partner institution? So if it's not a partner institution,
it's not. And again, it's, as I presented the criteria, it's really on the merits of the proposal, not whether you're going to partner university or not.
Okay.
But you can make a case, very strong case, and maybe Liz, do you have anything else to add to that?
Not really. I mean, I agree that it's based on the
Okay.
how feasible it is, how reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't tag your
Right. We haven't been doing that for many years here.
And actually, a really good point. And the other thing is that most of the time, our applicants, they are looking funding sources from other sources. So this is not the only one. And also, as you heard, it's very limited. So, that's what you will encourage to look into other funding sources as well. Yeah.
Is it me? Okay, sorry. So the letter of support from the host institution.
Yeah.
What kind of information? Is it about guaranteed office space, or is it what kind of information are you guys looking for?
I think basically, because remember what I said previously, is that we didn't really have that as a requirement, and we even had questions sometimes. Does this person even have an opportunity that is going to be offered to that faculty member? So we just want something, and correct me again because you are the chair of the subcommittee, is that will state that there's an invitation for this person to come to do this and this for this time period, right?
Right. I mean, if they do have office support,
it's nice to mention.
It's great, but
yeah.
I mean, the main thing is a lot of times we got, as Marja said, we got a lot of applications. Proposals they don't even know who they should contact over there.
Right.
And so we just like to know that if you're going to an institution, they know you're coming.
So is it that then does it matter whether or not it comes? So I have a colleague who has asked me to come, but can it be the colleague, or does it have to be an administrator who the letter comes from? Is there any are you looking for a particular ranking of where that?
We wouldn't necessarily, it's hard the hard part is that who's authorized to do that. I mean, it should come from somebody who has looked into this and can be authorized for the university to invite you to come to that university. Sometimes, again, university structures are different. Like a lot of our European partners, they're really decentralized. So there's a general, an overall international office, and then different departments and faculties have also an international office. So sometimes the university, based on the university structure, that letter, and often they have a structure, that letter should be written by the general international office. So I think that what I would suggest is that you ask the question, who at your university is authorized to write this letter of invitation for you to come? And I mean, at that point, I think will need to have looked into, okay, can they accommodate the opportunity? Let's say you're going to be doing research, you have a office space where you can work. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be teaching classes, have arrangements being made for you to do that and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I guess really good questions.
My other question, I have 1.5 more questions.
What is the half question?
Well, the half question we'll see. So one is when you are putting together your budget, I understand it was not 100% clear to me on the website, and then in the presentation
There's
here
a form that you can use on the website, by the way.
Right, I saw that. Yeah.
Saw that, yeah.
So my question is really, is your budget that you design or that you propose, is it supposed to include the cost associated with your replacement here at the university, or is that outside of your budget? I know that the chair's letter has to address that, but are you the individual? Are you budgeting for your replacement cost here, if somebody's going to teach?
No, because it's not really, because it's just something that you put in, but it's something that then the provost office will negotiate with the department.
Right.
So we used to have a practice that we would even block those out like that the committee, like the international committee, when they would review it, they wouldn't even look at that. They would look at the merits of the proposal and what the costs are.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't bear. So if there are costs associated with your replacement, that doesn't bear on your proposal. Okay.
Well, is that right? So
I mean,
it does bear, I guess, because it has to be negotiated, but
it doesn't, it's not with the committee.
Right.
yeah, it's not going to be exactly. The provost office is going to have to negotiate, like, because we are not making the decision.
Right.
We sent like literally an Excel sheet with our committee, with the subcommittee of the IC. They will review those proposals and rank them, and then we'll submit that to the provost office, and the provost is going to review all of those.
And they don't always go pretty.
No, they don't.
Right.
Yeah, or what we propose.
Yeah,
right.
It's often closed. I mean, so I guess it's really hard for us. It's really hard for me to exactly say how, but really, it's not something that's considered by the committee, because it's, like I said, it's looked at the merit of the proposal, not that, okay, this person has a very high replacement cost, so let's,
But crucially, your budget doesn't include that information.
Yeah, I mean, it will, in a sense that you will put that, so you do a budget that you put, that's a number, like I said, a lot of expensive costs associated with the replacement of exchange faculty, and number two is costs associated with the exchange itself, so you will indicate that.
Oh, you do? Because on
indicate that.
Okay, because on the website it seems that is addressed in the dean's, in the chair's letter.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't bring any. I can actually. What we can do, we can take all of your. I think we should probably. I didn't bring the. I can't remember now.
Oh, it is in the.
Yeah,
it is in the budget guidelines.
It is the budget guidelines. Yeah.
It's just that on the website it says that the department chair has to specify that in their proposal.
Well, because you cannot indicate that yourself. You have to have the conversations with your department chair. So you'll put that in there.
So your budget does include your replacement.
So it does include, but then there's two components about it. One is the replacement cost, and then one is the exchange itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
What's your half question?
Well, it's not really a half question. It's a whole question, but I wasn't sure. But so I guess this is more a question about in the identifying the, like, is your proposal meant to reflect on every one of the criteria? Like, obviously quality and soundness of the proposal and living in a different cultural environment, but it may not be the case that you are necessarily going to give a talk at your host institution, or that, like, I'm just wondering, it you address all of these or is it the more you address, the higher your proposal is ranked, or I don't know, like how.
If I've seen and Lisa's good to hear your comments when the subcommittee reviewed them. I've seen many proposals that actually have listed these, and then under that, like, they actually go criteria by criteria. And they indicate the area, how they're going to contribute, how their exchange is going to contribute to that criteria. So you go by each bullet point. And sometimes they don't. I mean, if they want to focus on more on one, but Liz, what would be your comment when you look at this?
Everybody does it.
Yeah.
I say it depends on the nature of what their research is. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do a teaching, or
You focus
purely
more on
a
that.
scholarship, and it's going to have a different focus. But it isn't bad to at least adjust to a certain extent.
Okay, thank you.
I would think so too.
Sort of a half. It's a 3/4 question.
A 3/4.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions, or shall we have our previous participants? Yes.
So in order to reduce the cost, especially to my department, I'm considering a 2-month exchange in May and June. So I will be after my teaching here, to go teach in Romania. Is that too short?
There is no,
Right.
you know what I mean, is that I feel that if it's at least a few months, there's nothing that says that you cannot. Yeah. And I can understand you're also probably business school with the teaching schedules and all of that can be difficult. What I'm saying is that it's not meant to fund like a couple of weeks proposal.
Right.
but I would like to also see that as more inclusive than exclusive of any criteria. So.
And the second question is, can you get 2 letters from the institution? Is that better than 1?
Well, I think that it's not, I mean, like I said, it says here, would we say letter of support from the host institution?
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't, yeah, I mean, of course it's great. And then, that can also probably demonstrate if that's from different academic areas that you will benefit both of those. Yeah.
We use it in our community at all.
Yeah.
So
And it's a big improvement. Yeah, for sure.
how serious. It wasn't serious, but if you're going to.
They know, they've already invited me, so it's
Yeah,
like,
well,
okay,
then.
I get no letters.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything about this listed under the eligibility requirements, but are there any restrictions or preferences faculty that are maybe in here?
Yeah, we were just thinking about that. I mean, I think that we've the applicants we've had previously have been either tenure track or tenured faculty. We did have though one whose appointment was 0.5 previously, but all of the ones we've had, we don't currently have it as a strict eligibility requirement, but what I can see previously that we've had, it's been either tenure track or tenured faculty. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I took the morning, but is the information you have up here on the screen available on the?
Yeah, it's all on the website. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So didn't really miss. Well, we missed a little bit. Some great questions here, but but we are also taping this, by the way, so via Zoom. Like I said, I have some. I think it's been. I think especially during the last few years, they've gotten smaller and smaller. So I feel like last year, do you remember? Wasn't it list like 5,000, 7,000? And remember that then, if depending on the pool of the applicants, so the provost office might fund part of that money, and that's why it's also really encouraged that you look at alternative sources of funding. Yeah. So maybe what we'll do now is that we'll have Jeremy, your PowerPoint is right after this, right? You have a few slides. Or what about Anna?
I don't have a PowerPoint.
Okay. Yeah. So do you want to then, Jeremy, jump in? Yours is right next after. I mean, I'll go. Is that?
You just need to exit out first.
I'll just exit out of that and then, yeah. So just exit. So, so what we thought would be really useful to invite a couple of our faculty members who, I mean, they actually did this faculty long-term international activity last year. So they're here to talk about the experience and also give pointers for the proposal preparation. Okay.
So I figured I would just do sort of matter of fact, this is where I started, this is how I got through it, this is how this fit as part of my package. Is that helpful? Would that be helpful to you? Or would you rather me say this is how I catered my application for just this faculty abroad? Because I'm happy to talk about. See, I started with
pictures.
I need nice pictures. I figured you want to see some nice pictures. I wanted to do a sabbatical experience. I wanted to do a global exchange experience of some kind. For me, let me just get my phone up. I teach in the School of Journalism. I teach photojournalism and multimedia storytelling. I also have co-taught our Native News Honors Project, which teaches students how to effectively cover stories with and from Indigenous communities in Montana. And so for me, my sabbatical actually started with this little guy right here, my son. When he was born, Carol Van Valkenburg and I got invited to go to Australia for the World. It was the World Press Freedom Indigenous Voices Conference. But he was born the same weekend, so I did not go. And Carol came back and said, you really should go. We should connect you with someone in Australia or New Zealand or Norway or Sweden to get a global perspective on what we did. And so that was really the main goal for me. And of course, it took 7 or 8 years before I felt the kids were old enough. and that I had. For me, it was coming up with some sort of vision. What do I really see as my goals for what I wanted to do? So I had professional goals, absolutely, as an instructor. In journalism, I wanted to bring it back to my students in the classroom, my faculty who I teach with, to the university as a whole. And then for me, as just a person, I want a global perspective for my family. I started, for those of you who have connections at the university, that was the hardest part for me because I hadn't been to any international conferences yet. Carol had a few connections and they had all moved on. So I had to find new connections when I applied. And then how am I going to fund it? Because it was a long trip, and I applied for sabbatical, Fulbright, and this faculty long-term. So I was sort of piecing together each part. So to cover my faculty line, the sabbatical was how I applied to do that. Fulbright was also there as an option. I was a finalist for a Fulbright, but I didn't get it, which was a real bummer because I looked at this as half of the year, my research, my creative activity, and the second part of my year, my teaching and engagement with the faculty at the university. And then I made a timeline, and then I started applying. But for me, it was probably a year and a half before leave date that I started this whole process. So hopefully you're halfway if you're applying this year. You're already well on your establishment. And so New Zealand, the reason New Zealand came about was because of that conference, but I also started researching Indigenous issues in the media. And so I was looking at places like that. I looked at Sweden. I had a connection in Sweden. I had a connection in Australia. And then I made really good connections at Massey University with one of our partner institutions. So I pitched to them and then to my department, can I come there? Can you give me an office? Can you help me with the research projects I want to do? And I would like to be involved in a teaching capacity. So, and then I found a backup university in New Zealand as well, University of Canterbury, because I found that Massey was great, but I thought, what if it falls through? Because I had a few little things. They're like, well, we don't know if we can do this or that. So I had reached out to both and made connections with both and ended up having really good exchanges at both. And then my pitch was, what's my expertise and what do I want to build for me and my department in school? And so my application definitely focused on what am I going to do teaching-wise in relation to visual multimedia storing, and what am I going to do teaching and reporting-wise about reporting from Indigenous communities. So those were my big bullet points for my global application, or the faculty long-term grant application. And then my creative work part was the Wanganui River in central North Island had just received personhood in terms of the law. And so for me, I wanted to work on journalism projects, a film and a multimedia project about that. So that was also part of my application, that I was going to do some teaching work, engage with faculty and students, and then I was going to go do journalism. So that's that part of my application. And so I had a pretty good chunk on what that looked like and did some preliminary research on who I was going to talk to and how that project might unfold. And then the planning was getting the applications done. They all shared the same stuff, which was great. So I had 10 pages of material that I could pull on for the faculty long-term grant. I do think for all of my applications, having those international connections, those good letters, I think I had 2 letters from the supporting institution saying, yes, office space, yes, we want you to teach with us, we want to engage with you, we'd like you to lecture for our university as well. So that was really essential, I'm assuming, for my application. Budget was really important. Budget was a lot for us. I had brought my whole family, so I had 2 kids and my wife, and so we had to figure out that funding picture. The Fulbright would have made that a lot easier. That's why I was disappointed I didn't get it. And then I had people at every department, my school and global exchange office at the university level that knew what I was doing, was behind me going to do this exchange. The other thing I found, if you haven't found someone, if you're applying for Fulbright, sabbatical, or this is find someone who's done it before. I talked with I think 3 different faculty, one who had done it abroad in New Zealand, 2 who had gone to New Zealand, and then 2 who had gotten Fulbrights. So I had them, took them out to coffee and said, what do I need to do to make this better and stronger? And then logistics, I thought maybe I'd throw some random logistics. If you're gonna go live abroad, things that might be useful to start thinking about actually now, believe it or not, because 6 bags and 2 bike boxes and 2 kids and a box of Legos to get there on time and without spending too much mattered. We rented our home here, which was a huge savings for us. If that's something that's in your picture, I just talked to every single faculty I knew and put it on all the lists and found someone who was here for the semester, or 2 semesters, the same exact time we were. I found some cool things for your phones, if you're living abroad. We switched everything over to New Zealand when we were there, car, all that stuff. And then how was I gonna keep all my receipts and report to my main admin person, get on your passports and visas early, and for me it was camera gear and how much much stuff can I fit on the airplane that I need for what I do for work, because film work is cases of stuff. You're a math person or an economics person. This is the exchange rate to New Zealand, and the reason I show that, because I wish I was leaving now, because you can see what the US dollar is doing. If you haven't done this, I started 4 months before, but it actually made the difference. I think over the course, I had out of my grant money and some of the salary money that I brought over, I think we had $2,000 extra New Zealand because we changed it at the right time. So I would follow that. Another tip was TransferWise. Has anybody done a lot of international travel and switch money between currencies? I think services like TransferWise are huge because you get money the same day. So like when we started to run out of money and we needed money, it was like, boom, it was there. So I thought TransferWise did a fantastic job for us. And it was way lower fee than doing a bank-to-bank transfer every time. I mean, you're just talking, you're throwing $50 out at the shop. So I hope that answers. I'm trying to think of other things that are interesting. Everything that I said I did, I ended up mostly doing. Some things did change when I didn't get the Fulbright. I had to shrink the amount in innovations of what I hoped to do with teaching. But I also found with the host institution, if you're teaching, their semester schedule was different. And the thing that we had the most trouble working out is they do a 3-year undergrad with a 1-year postgrad. So the class I wanted to do for my Fulbright was almost impossible. They said they would make it work. I didn't get it, and they ended up hiring me to do a slightly different class. So the host institution paid for my salary for a 12-week workshop for them. So that worked out pretty well. Yeah, and then we went and settled in, and I worked on a story on the Wanganui River and its importance and what it means to gain personhood for people living and working and recreating along the river. I took a Maori language class, which was part of what we did while we were there. And I don't know, I'll leave you with one of the cool things I took out of the adventure was what all the people from the iwi, the tribe that lives along the river, say, which is Koal Te Awa, Ko Te Awa Koal, which I am the river is me. And my whole story wanted to get beneath that on what that really means, because they all say it and they say that's what it really means. And I said, well, take me the next step. So the funding for this one was my airfare, lodging, and then 2 weeks of my 3 weeks of proposed reporting to drive up and down the river and see people and do that. That's what I applied for this. And then I used my sabbatical money to sort of cover living expenses beyond that. Yeah.
How much, did you remember what your budget? I can't remember.
My budget was, I asked for 10,000 or 9,500, yeah. I think. And so that was the airfare was anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 to go to New Zealand. We worked it out. We did 2 separate flights. Flying from LA was way cheaper, so then we did a flight from Salt Lake and we drove to Salt Lake. So that saved some money. And then I think it was 6,000 for my first 4 months of lodging in country. Wellington and Massey, the downfall's Massey's in Wellington, and so there was no housing they could find me. The housing is so tight, the prices are really expensive. We lucked out, but we ended up doing an Airbnb for 2 weeks because we felt like it's worth 2 weeks of spending a little bit more on a place to find a place that was reasonably priced and in a good location. And then what was the last? And then the last budget was in-country travel, which was, I think I did 1,500 for 2 weeks of travel.
Yeah, actually, Massey has 3 campuses, so it's because you were in journalism. That was Wellington. It was also Palmerston North and
north of Auckland.
And Auckland.
Yeah.
It kind of depends then where you.
In relation to the letters you got, I got it from the department head of communications for the Massey camp, or for the Massey Wellington campus. That was my letter of support that said, office, library access, yes, we want you to teach for us. We're still working on the details. Was where that was at, I think, when I put this application in. Yeah. But yeah, I'm happy to, any details or stuff like that.
Do you know which word is river in Maori?
Anybody take a guess looking at that? Awa. And so the river bill, they gave the if you're from the iwi that live on the river, you say Wanganui with a W. If you live on any other dialect, a different Maori tribe, it's actually Wanganui. WH is it a font sound? Yeah. So I learned how to introduce myself, and yeah, it was actually really informative for me as a faculty member and stuff I'm going to share with my faculty. What I learned and with my students when we teach Native News next spring definitely informed how I think about things, which is great.
Yeah. So in relation to budget, and this is maybe for Maria, they, we weren't even sure there would be funded international exchanges this year from the Global Engagement Office. Do you have a on
Yeah.
how many might be
It's not
funded?
through our office. This is through the provost office. So we just sort of,
Make recommendations.
make recommendations. And actually, it's not even global engagement office that makes recommendations. It's the international committee that then submits that information to the provost office. So the funding for this is like very limited. It's 15,000 total. So it's been a lot more before us, and then depending, of course, what the pool of applicants is and how competitive it is. So what I was saying earlier before you walked in is that very much encourage applicants to look into other sources of funding so that you would just combine, that this would just be one piece. I think I've seen the budget for the last year. Please correct me if I'm wrong. They were between like 5 and 10,000, like the actual exchange cost, right? Probably 5,000. Can't remember.
Not quite.
There were 3, yeah.
So you mentioned the value of that experience for your family as well, and some of the personal, in addition to the professional value of the experience. Is that something that you would include in the application? Would that be something that would be of value, or would it be a detriment to be in the application?
I wrote one paragraph about what I thought it would be like for my family and why I thought it was important for our whole family to have a global perspective. Whether it's for them understanding my work globally, but more important, just for us all to grow as people. And the Fulbright application also wanted you to address that. Sort of how do you see your family going abroad if you are bringing them? And I think they want to see what you see as value in them. And for me, it's global perspective. It's understanding how another part of the world works. But I think I kept it to one paragraph, pretty short and sweet. And I will say it was amazing. I mean, for they're changed individuals, 8 and 6 years old. That was really a cool part to see.
One other question about the criteria, and so your focus seemed to be on so like the first criteria was about teaching and revising course syllabi and things like that. So I had kind of interpreted that as maybe what do you learn from the experience that you can take back to UM and sort of redesign or reimagine your courses that you teach here, and maybe that's part of it. And now I'm thinking like maybe it's more important to like rather than just have like a research experience at the institution abroad, to see it about having some involvement in teaching there too, or something. How important is that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, research is doing like for journalism, since we're a professional school, I can either do a scholarly work about bias in indigenous media coverage, but that's not really what I do. I more teach how do you go and do that active journalism and do it well. So I definitely wanted to work on 2 projects, and both of those projects on the river expanded how I do journalism greatly. The teaching part, we had great visions of sort of trying to join what we do here in a class with a class there, but all the timing requirements just couldn't line up. So what they ended up wanting me to do was help them revise their multimedia storytelling curriculum. And then on the side, I met with faculty individually, and we met about where do you teach reporting on indigenous cultures in your curriculum and how do you do it. So it was more informal. That part wasn't as formalized as we had intended. And then we talked about their curriculum, and I basically built a 12-week course for them and then taught it, shared it, so now they have that course. So that ended up being my teaching. So it helped me think about my own teaching here. I took a lot of what we do here and I changed it for them. So that was good. But I don't know if that answers your question.
I think we probably, sorry, Jeremy, need to move to Anna, so that making sure that there's enough time for her to keep her comments. So thank you so much. It was really good. Yeah.
Sorry, Anna, but I can catch you in the hallway. Sorry.
All right, well, hi everyone, I'm Anna Prentice, I'm from anthropology. My travel was to the University of Cambridge. I was a visiting scholar at the McDonnell Institute for Archaeological Research at Cambridge. A few quick things. It came about in a little different way. I had gone, well, backdrop was I've been involved in a major archaeological research project in British Columbia, the latest phase of which started in 2012. I had, and pretty sure I was going to get awarded it because part of my BC research also included an NEH fellowship. So I had a fellowship lined up, so I felt good about that sabbatical application. And then I went to a conference called the Conference on Hunter-Gatherer Societies in Vienna in September of 2015. And then I had another conference at Aarhus University in Denmark, about a week separating the two conferences. And so I decided to go visit colleagues and spend some time in Cambridge. And while I was there, unbeknownst to me, they had set up this almost faculty appointment interview process in the Department of Archaeology. So I just walked into this full schedule of lunches and dinners and interviews, and wow. And so by the time that was done, after about 3 days of that, I was in the director's office, who offered me to come whenever I wanted and spend as much time as I wanted at the McDonald Institute. So then I came back here and began talking about ways that we could fund me to get to the McDonald Institute. And so which led me to this application. My time at the McDonald was to be dedicated to substantial amount of research, but also being part of the departmental and institute community and collaborating with their faculty on research and giving talks in the institute, guest teaching in one or more classes, and just being part of the culture of Cambridge. And so my pitch in my proposal was I pretty much followed the line of criteria by which the proposal was going to be reviewed. So I felt it really important to make the case for the institution itself, which kind of speaks for itself. But the McDonald Institute is sort of a major force in global archaeology. They have speaker labs, they have 10 speaker series, not 10 speakers, 10 speaker series in a given term. They have 100 PhD students, 5 postdocs, and some number of visiting scholars like me, and 30 faculty. And it's a truly global space. And so I made the case in my proposal for just the importance of the place, and how much I could take away from just being part of that for a term. And then after that, I sort of walked through the importance of being able to go and do research in this place and develop colleague relationships and develop relationships for our students in this place. I don't think we have a formal university-university partnership, which would be a great thing to develop. I'm here to help with that, if that could happen. Anyway, and so from a research standpoint, I proposed that we could engage with working with one or more of their faculty on research projects particularly relevant to my work in British Columbia and also my ongoing research in the Arctic. And so we developed a couple of things there, including what I think is going to be some really interesting research, collaborating with Enrico Prima in the department there, doing Bayesian analysis of radiocarbon date frequencies in the Middle Fraser in British Columbia, and then if that works out well, doing the same thing with ancestral Yupik archaeological sites in Southwest Alaska. And so I think that was an exciting outcome and something I proposed to do in the proposal. I've been involved in editing a book for Springer called The Handbook of Evolutionary Research in Archaeology, which is a first-time sort of comprehensive coverage of all the different ways that archaeologists do Darwinian evolutionary research with archaeological data. And 2 of the faculty at Cambridge are part of that, so it was great to go get to work with them. There are other European scholars who are part of that project, and so some of them were going to Cambridge, and while I was there, I kind of went to them. And so we had that kind of collaboration thing going on for that book. And then I was able to work with a recent PhD from Simon Fraser University, who's lodged at Cambridge, collaborating on results of a major excavation they had done in BC, where we're sort of rethinking what was going on 5,000 years ago in British Columbia. So the opportunities for collaborative research, I played that up in my proposal, and I also pointed to particular outcomes that could come from this. A book here, articles there. And then let's see what else. I also played up things that I would bring back for teaching here. Opportunities for grad students, opportunities for undergrads. I promised to rework some of my syllabi, which I am doing. I rethought a lot of the readings, in particular in my evolutionary archaeology class. I'm bringing more things into the classroom in my hunter-gatherers class. I was able to join the what's called the Pal-Meso group at Cambridge, which is the Paleolithic Mesolithic group, which had a speaker series on Fridays, and even better than the speaker series was the pub visit after the talk on Fridays, where you really got to talk to the faculty and the grad students who are part of this group. And so it was great to be able to bring back ideas drawn from going to lectures, having pub visits with colleagues, going to formal dinners at the colleges at Cambridge with various colleagues. It was great for me because I got to go lunch and dinner with people whose work I've read for decades, and which was just a total thrill. I would not have had a chance to do that had I not gone and spent a term at Cambridge. See what else? Things I offered to them, I talked about that in my proposal. In my proposal, I couldn't know exactly what I was going to offer. I knew they wanted me to give a talk. I ended up giving a talk in the Dorothy Garrett series and in the George Pitt Rivers series on different aspects of our British Columbia work. And then I guest lectured on cultural evolution in Enrico's course, upper division course there at Cambridge. And then, so that was great. And then I also traveled to Copenhagen and lectured at the Danish National Museum on our BC research as well. That led to an invitation to join a research group at the Danish National Museum focused on Bronze Age women's travel, in which we are combining isotopic research into human remains and clothing with phylogenetic modeling of change in artifact frequencies in burials. And our former student, Matt Walsh, is part of their team. And I'm now a distant, geographic distant part of that team as well. And we're waiting on a new grant coming about. They put in for a huge Danish grant for a center of excellence focused on travels of Danish women or Danish Bronze Age women and people in general. I guess men, and in which we're waiting for the outcome of that to see then what we can do further with that project. So we're about out of time, so there's a fast run through of some of the things that I did. Questions? Possibly. I don't know. It would be great to get Matt back because he's become a sort of core member of that research. And Matt has been involved in. Well, that brings up one more thing. One of the great things being there is I'm working with a team from Aarhus University and the Danish National Museum on developing a big project in Northeast Greenland, looking at climate change and loss of archaeological sites, and then trying to understand adaptive change in the prehistoric past as well. And so Matt's part of that. Colleagues at Aarhus are part of that, and don't think we got any Cambridge people there. But putting me in Cambridge put me a short flight from Denmark.
And Aarhus is our partner university. So
okay.
We have really strong partners with Aarhus. We have, we exchange students and also faculty. Actually, one of the faculty members who received this award for next year is going to university.
Oh, nice.
So I feel that also that really goes a long way of strengthening these partnerships in different academic areas and disciplines. So that's we're looking forward to. Yeah.